Today we're going to look at a Stihl MS 462 chainsaw. The saw wasn't running when it came in, so I went ahead and started digging into the saw. First thing I checked was the carburetor. The carburetor is pretty filthy, so I did clean that up and run it through the ultrasonic cleaner. After I got that done, I went ahead and put the carburetor back on the saw. I did get it to fire up and run as long as I had my hand on the throttle. As soon as I took my finger off the throttle, then the saw quit running. So I ended up digging into the saw further and found out that it has a scored piston. So today we're going to be replacing the piston and the jug on this saw.
I'm going to start by removing the muffler so that way I have access to the jug. Next, I'm going to remove the handle. It just makes it a lot easier to access everything. You got 3 screws on the one side, 2 underneath, and then you got the AV spring screw to remove as well. Just make sure you guys keep track of the screws so that way you put the right ones back in the right position. Next, I'm going to remove the air guide shroud. There's only 2 screws holding this on. One of them is also holding a wire, so make sure you guys put that back on. The wire's reconnected. Next, I'll remove the wires and the hoses from the carburetor brackets. That way I can remove that piece as well. You'll have to remove the metal washer so that way you can push the manifold back through, so that way you can clear the carburetor bracket. Once I get everything disassembled from around the jug, I'll go ahead and start removing the spline screws. There's going to be 4 of them right there, 2 in the front, and then you access the other 2 on the exhaust side by these small holes right here. Once you get the 4 spline screws out, go ahead and pull the jug off. Now I'm going to loosen the screw on the clamp that holds the manifold onto the jug, so that way I can take the manifold off and reuse it on the new jug. Be careful when you're taking this manifold clamp off, so that way you're not prying too hard and poking a hole into the manifold. I already removed the decom valves, so the manifold should be the last thing that I have to remove off the old jug. Now I'm going to remove the recoil assembly. It just gives me a little bit more clearance when I'm trying to remove the snap rings that hold onto the piston. So take the old piston off. I got to remove the snap rings. Go ahead and take a screwdriver and start prying on it. Sometimes you can use a pointed screwdriver and just get enough leverage underneath there where you can pry that ring free. I'll take the snap ring off the recoil side. It's the easiest one to get to. And then once I get that out, I'll go ahead and push the piston pin all the way through so I can take the piston off. Now that I got the piston off, you can see the damage to the piston. The rings are actually seated in there and fused to the piston, probably due to a lean run issue. Now we're going to prep the new piston for install. Go ahead and notice the ring right there. There's a gap in the ring so it fits around that pin. That way you can collapse it when you're installing it. So it's going to have 2 of those in different position points. Also notice the arrow on the top. That's going to always point to your exhaust side for install. Before we put the new piston on, I'm going to go ahead and put the new needle cage in there. I do go ahead and install some Stihl multi-lube on there so that way it's properly lubricated before I stick it on the crank. So here's a picture of the part number 0781-120-1109. Make sure you guys put your gasket back in there. Do not forget this, otherwise you will have to tear everything back down so that way you can install it. I use Stihl press fluid when I'm doing the install on the piston, that way it reduces friction. I do install the snap ring on the clutch side of the piston before I put it on the saw. Once I get the piston aligned with the needle cage, I go ahead and put the piston pin in place. I use a screwdriver to push the piston pin down to make sure it's secured against the snap ring on the clutch side. Now I'm going to install a little press fluid around that snap ring hole so that way it's easier to get the snap ring in place. Installing the snap rings really is a pain in the butt. There's no easy way to do it. What I've found the best way to start is take one side of the snap ring, work it into the hole, and then just gradually go around with a screwdriver and continue to push it all the way around. Keep in mind the snap rings are easy to lose, so it does benefit you to have a couple extra ones on hand so that way if you do lose them, you can just pick a new one up and continue with your project. Once you get your snap ring started, if you put your thumb over the hole, it'll help hold that snap ring in place while you're going around with the screwdriver, pushing it in there so that way it doesn't go flying off. Once you get your snap ring in place, go ahead and double check and make sure it's seated properly. Make sure you guys aren't bending the snap rings. If your saw is going 13,000 RPMs and that snap ring comes off, you're going to wreck your piston. The next thing I'm going to do is install the jug. Go ahead and block off the bottom of your piston. That'll help it not move, so that way you can install the jug on top. Go ahead and grab your clamp. Also make sure that when you're clamping your rings, that your rings are seated properly, so that way you're not snapping the rings off when you clamp down on them. I also use press fluid around the rings, so that way it slides and there's not a lot of friction when you're trying to get the jug over top of the piston. As you can see right here, the rings are seating properly inside the piston. When I clamp down, the rings aren't sticking out at all. You should be able to see those when you clamp down on the piston. If you do see some of the black rings, go ahead and take that clamp back off and make sure everything's aligned on those studs. I put the press fluid on there, now I'm going to put the jug on top. So once you get the jug aligned, you're going to slowly push down while you're releasing pressure on the clamp, which is going to release the rings inside the jug. If it's not going on there, don't force it. Go ahead and pull the jug back off and then reseat your clamp on the rings. Once both rings are inside the jug, I'm going to go ahead and take the clamp off and remove the block. Once the clamp and the blocks are gone, go ahead and push that jug down, make sure everything's seating properly. Now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the manifold and clamp before I put the jug back on the unit. I align the point on the manifold with the spark plug so that way everything's properly aligned. Make sure you get all 4 spline screws started before you tighten them all the way down. If you tighten one and then you try to get the other ones in, you could strip the screws. Now I'm just going to reinstall everything and put it back together. For those of you that have never done these top-end rebuilds on chainsaws before, they can be a little bit difficult. I tried to highlight some of the things in the video that'll make it easier for you to do this process. When I do these, they usually take me about 45 minutes. If you've never done them before, they could take you 2 to 3 hours. A lot of that depends on how well you remember where stuff goes and following the instructions in the video. Also, the snap rings that go on the side of these, they can be quite troublesome. Just plan on taking a little extra bit of time with those because they're very important. If you don't do them properly, they'll fail when the saw is running, and then you completely destroy everything that you just did. All right, so I just wanted to recap on a few things. Make sure you guys have your multi-lube. That's going to be for your needle cage. It's important to lube that stuff up. Also have press fluid. That's going to reduce your friction when you're putting on your piston and your jug together. Also, make sure you guys have a block that's going to hold your piston up so that way when you're putting your jug on top, it holds it into place. And last but not least, you're going to need the ring clamp. You can get a set on these on Stens for probably 10 bucks. You have to have one of these to be able to compress the rings to get that jug on top. So if you guys like this video and you found it interesting, make sure you like the video and subscribe to our channel. I do have a lot of great content on there showing you guys how to fix small engine equipment, stuff that comes through the shop.
So thanks for watching this video, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.